My name is Christian Mauri. Along with Robert Dells, we organise these events under the name of the Fremantle Network. This is called Politics of the Pub. For those who have returned, thank you so much for coming back. And for those who are new, thank you so much for checking it out. Much appreciated. So before we start, there's just a few things to say. Of course, to begin, we pay our respects to the custodians of this land, the Woodcock people. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And to that end, to wit, the Fremantle Network are also working with Notre Dame University, with this fine man behind me, and the students there who are journalists. They have an organisation called News Speak. It's a funny play on words. So next Wednesday, we have a voice Q&A at Tannock Hall at Notre Dame University. So if you have any questions and you're like, who do I ask? Come along on Wednesday and you can meet some people to ask. So Steve is the editor of The Chook, aka the Fremantle Herald. He works extremely hard. He's also a very accomplished jazz musician, but I think that might be a myth because I've never seen him play. But so the story goes. He always asks, but I don't do too big of an introduction, so all that I'll say is he's extremely generous with his time. We're grateful to have him here. So thank you very much for coming along and joining us, Steve.
Thank you all, everyone, for coming along tonight. It's that time again when our best and brightest stand come forward. Their sharp minds step up, ready to bring glory to their school. Oh, hang on. Sorry. I got asked to introduce the inter-school debating contest this morning. Got the wrong one. Sorry. Oh God, it's election time! The backstabbing! The crucifying! The inhumanity of it all! Just joking. But the truth is, local politics is a far different beast to that era when Daniel Scott, Harbour Master Daniel Scott, I should say, stood astride a cart to argue that Fremantle deserved to have its own town trust, of which he was best suited to be its first chair-mayor. It's a tough gig nowadays. Councillors are under unprecedented scrutiny and correspondingly unprecedented demands. Who do that? Well, these amazing, talented community leaders who are with us here tonight. And if you wouldn't mind standing while the rest of us show our appreciation for your willingness to take the responsibility on to lead our city into the near future. So stand up, our candidates, if you wouldn't mind. And going around, I can see Geoff Graham is over there, Frank Mofflin is there, I can see Ingrid Van Dorssen there, I can see Mark Woodcock is there, Steve Pynt is there, Jemima Williamson-Wong is there, I've got Glynn in the back, Marija Vujcic there. Is there anyone I've missed? I said Andy, didn't I? Oh, sorry, Andy Kent is there. Sorry, I thought you were first off my rank. I think that's all of them. So thank you all very much for coming along. My little speech also was a bit of a note of caution that politics can get a bit grubby, or it can get a bit grubby, but I would like to bring us back to that time of civil debate. So if any questions come up later which are a bit underhand, I feel a bit dodgy, I'm going to send it to the spittoon under the bar. So let's keep it civil, but nice and hearty as a debate. So how we're going to start things off is I'm going to invite the candidates via a draw from the hat as to who comes first to come up and give 2 minutes about their big idea for Fremantle. At 1 minute and 30, I shall clap once. At 2 minutes, I shall clap twice. At 2.5 minutes, I will lead a rousing chorus of claps from the entire room designed to cut them off at the feet. It's great fun, trust me, you'll love it. So having said that, let's find our hat. Here it is. Perhaps a volunteer. Here we go, right at the front. If you could reach in there. And our first speaker off the ranks is Jemima Williamson-Wong. And once you've had your speech, just come and sit on the chairs here. There you go.
the time already. Alright. Good evening, everyone. When I began to develop my campaign, I realised pretty quickly that what I want to do is to enhance the core values of what we all already love about living and working here in Freo, to improve and support its sustainability, accessibility, creativity and diversity. And at the core of this is one central value: community. And this is the big idea that I will champion if elected. Community is defined as a group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together. And to me, Fremantle is the epitome of a community, unified by our care for another and for place. I've heard this love for our city reiterated in many ways. We are a village in a city and a small town at heart. But most importantly, it's the strong connections we have with one another that have built the Freo we love. If elected, I will champion decision-making from a baseline of community. I will ask myself whether this decision promotes well-being and livability. I will ask myself if it helps or hinders the opportunity to improve connection between us all. In practice, this looks like enhancing our green space, prioritising walkability and the good quality design of our public domain, and supporting the continual improvement of our city's accessibility. Prioritising community in decision-making is not a wish list. It's about making sure that every tough decision that the council has to make is considerate of all residents. If elected, I will listen to your concerns and hopes for the future of our great city. I will do my own research and support what I think is best for our community, and then happily explain my decision to anyone interested. I am infinitely grateful to have grown up in this village, and I'm dedicated to improving it so that my children can one day have this opportunity too. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Andy Kent.
Hi, I'm Andy Kent and I'm candidate for the Coast Award. What I'll be working towards, should I be elected, is for the underutilised council-owned buildings to be made available at minimal cost to young and emerging artists of every persuasion to create, to gather and to rehearse. Along with the establishment of an annual Emerging Artist Award to further encourage young artists to see Freo as a genuine artistic hub once again. I believe that the perfect place to start is the Town Hall. I still find it hard to believe that in a budget of over 50 million and counting for the new Civic Centre, there was no allocation of a mere 500,000 to restore and repair the original Town Hall as part of the whole project. It reminds me of a child discarding a favourite old toy for a new shiny one. I hear that we can't afford to do it, but I believe we can't afford not to. Earlier this year, the person who restored the hall in 1986 said it was a matter of urgency to carry out the work because of the increasing shortage of skilled tradespeople. That's only going to get worse, and the cost is naturally going to go up further. As such, I urge the Council to find money in the 24-25 budget. This money can be found in a number of ways. Less consultants for a start, but I'd propose a CBD commercial vacancy level similar to what has been successfully adopted by a series of councils in Melbourne, with the revenue raised dedicated to a heritage restoration fund. In relation to the council-owned properties, empty buildings cost money. They also create a void. The benefits of this proposal are more space for young creatives, restore Freo as a genuine arts hub, and utilise empty space and bring back life to the area. Also, it will create revenue. The stage area could be hired out for concerts, performances, and for bands to rehearse, which will not only help reactivate the city centre, but help restore that elusive Freo vibe. We've lost our edge when it comes to being a genuine artistic hub, and I believe this will help rectify that. It'll also put an emphasis back onto the maintenance and use of our heritage buildings and make Freo more Freo again.
Our next is Steve Pynt.
Good evening. The big idea that I will champion if I'm elected is to make sure that every building and office building and retail shop in Fremantle is filled. This will create more jobs for Fremantle, more for Fremantle residents, bring more people into Fremantle because there will be a more diverse range of businesses rather than just the great hospitality industry that we've got. It will also be a better shopping experience for everybody, and will also enable Fremantle to increase the ratepayer base as more people want to live in Fremantle. Apart from the obvious benefits that this idea will bring if we obviously were able to complete it, it means that we've achieved a number of other issues that long need resolving. This includes keeping the streets clean, maintaining and repairing buildings, e.g. the Roundhouse, Spare Puppets Theatre, Post Office and Terminus Building, all of which are within about 100 metres of my office, so particularly biased there. If we are able to do this, it also means that we've solved some of the other issues such as security, lighting, safety and security for people, done something about the parking with greater free periods for people to park in the city, reduce antisocial behaviour, help solve the homelessness issue, all of which will be great benefits for businesses, residents and visitors. It will also mean that we've achieved more conversion to underground power, thereby being able to increase the street tree canopies. Now, to achieve all that, we need to get our finances substantially improved, which for me is critical if we're going to improve Fremantle as a place to live, work and visit. What we all want is better services without corresponding rate increases. This is where I believe I can have the most impact if I am elected. Ensuring prudent financial decisions going forward, which are all at all times in the best interests of ratepayers. What we need is fresh ideas and input to financial decision making. Thank you.
Good evening. Let's do it again. This is Marija Vujcic, your elected councillor of the South Ward, asking for a second term, another 4 years. Now, over my last 4 years, I have devoted a lot of time to transparency, accountability, governance, and mostly about finances. I estimate over my 4 years, there's about 27 million that was spent that shouldn't have really been spent. Now, if you have a look at this year's budget, it's 91 million. It's comprised of fees and parking, about 28%. We have about 4% in interest revenue, another 2% in other revenue. But the 64% we, the ratepayers and residents, are on the hook for. From these statistics, we can see that you don't have to be too clever, that we have very challenging financial times. And certainly my other candidates here have also identified. What we finance, we value. We lost our cat bus, not because we couldn't find the money, it's because we didn't value it enough. We valued our relationship with the Murdoch family, and we gave that 20-year lease to them, not because they were the best. Now, what I would do in my second term is I would do an audit and risk special projects committee. In that committee, we do two things. In the 12 months, we get together with 4 experienced experts from the community, 2 councillors and the CEO, and we have $5 million income producing target to produce. And the second point is $1 million to heritage maintenance through grants and philanthropy through our entrepreneurs. $24 million in 4 years. I'm up for it.
Geoff Graham was over there.
Good evening. 4 years ago I stood here and talked about Fremantle as a tourist destination, and within a year we were in lockdown, so I'm keeping well away from tourism. So I'm going a little bit more local tonight with the new Central Ward. As a current councillor, for those who don't know, most of the phone calls I've been getting in the last 6 to 12 months have been about the rat runners. Now, we all live in streets where we have cars going 60, 70 or 80 kilometres an hour, but they should only be going 50, they're allowed to go 50. So with the new Central Ward, which is divided by South Street Carrington down to South Street, Hampton, nobody wants to go to those lights. They all want to come down through a little local street, whether it's Manuia, Yalgoo, Hewerdale, Macleary, they are zooming down them. So with all these phone calls and the complaints about rat runners, I'm making that, might not be sexy, but it's a fairly big project. And the only way this project's going to get done is to have a good communication with the community who instigate this, because they've made the first connection with me to do something about it. For me to do something, I've got to build relationships with fellow councillors, the mayor, the executive staff, the paid staff who are skilled in traffic management. All this takes a skill, and I feel as if I've got the communication skills, the respect and the time and commitment to follow this route. But of course, nothing is easy, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And unfortunately with road traffic, it all comes back to main roads. So this won't be an easy task. It is one that is achievable, but it needs a lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of faith in the community that we can deliver it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I begin my presentation this evening by acknowledging the Whadjuk people of Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. My big idea is the voice. No, not that voice, but your voice. How will it be heard now the wards are bigger and the number of elected members fewer, and increasingly functioning more like a board of directors than an old-style councillor who was once a familiar figure in your neighbourhood? Your voice has a lot to say if you get the chance to say it. In dealing with the challenge of large developments being thrust into our communities, I've become aware of the impressive body of well-credentialed expert knowledge and experience that our community contains. This is a poorly tapped resource for the council. The individuals are generally not interested in being part of an organisation, but very willing to contribute on a specific issue. More should be made of the precincts, actively seeking early input from them and encouraging them to identify and harness the powers of the experts in their midst. A community contributing to council's decision making is much happier, much more valuable than one expending its energy on taking the council to task over the decisions that are made. If elected councillor, I will devote my experience and professional expertise to dealing with a full range of issues facing our community. I commit to representing my community in decision making, informing the community about issues and development that will directly affect them, and consulting the community at every stage of the development process. I will support and encourage community participation through the precincts, local meetings, and online engagement. My aim is to work with you to preserve what we love about Fremantle and make it even better. Thank you for listening.
All right, good evening. My name is Mark. I think I've been commenting on Fremantle in general for well on a decade now. And one thing I've really thought that's important, and that's one of the real reasons you become a councillor, and that's our amenity. And that's lots of little services, it's lots of things at your park, at your footpath, at your roads. It's the council using our property well. And our property, we've had a huge amount of property lost. And if we're going to balance budgets, and that's where I probably agree with a few of the other previous speakers, the finances are really important, because it's the finance that pays for a new playground for the kids. It's what fixes your pavement, it's what makes the stormwater drain cleaned out. There's lots of services that we just take for granted, and it's actually a huge amount of work. I believe sometime about 2009, the council spent a lot of money on some reports, and those reports told us that we had an outstanding maintenance debt of $50 million. Now that's more money than was budgeted to build the entire King Square. And about 2013, I'll probably get the year wrong, I also put my hand up for the first time for council, and I went to the old website, dusted it off, printed it out, and looked at my new flyer, and looked at the one from 2013. I went, wow, nothing's changed, it's got worse. So we really need to focus on the basics. Amenity is very, very important. And I don't think anyone disagrees that we should have a nice amenity, we should have services. And I'm really worried about things when I see assets still for sale. We've sold so many assets that produce so much revenue for the city, and they're gone. You can never get them back, it will cost a fortune. So when I see that the leisure centre car park is still in the 10-year forward plan, which is 5 years out of date, and it's still for sale, that worries me. So amenity is probably the most important thing. We pay for that. That's what our rates go for. The services, rubbish, roads, fine. But the amenity that makes our community what it is.
Good evening, everyone. The Fremantle City Council have a monthly meeting, and it's referred to as the FPOL meeting. This acronym stands for Finance, Policy, Operations and Legislation. The meeting decides how the ratepayers' money will be spent. My aim, my idea that I'll champion, is for every FPOL meeting, councils are to be reminded from the chairperson before they cast a vote that they pledged when they were elected, and that was to uphold the views of the residents and ratepayers of Fremantle. That's section 2.10 of the Local Government Act. With such a reminder fresh in their minds before they vote, it is hoped that the councillors will demonstrate far more consideration in the ratepayers' needs. Sorry about this, it's a little bit dark in here. Previous FPOL voting has ignored the ratepayers. Specific examples include using $35,000 of ratepayers' money to campaign for the yes vote. $100,000 to sponsor Perth Glory Soccer Club. That's like the Coburn City Council sponsoring Fremantle Dockers, or the Subiaco City Council sponsoring the Eagles. It just wouldn't happen. FPOL have also cancelled the cat bus and also the bulk waste collection. These are services to ratepayers. The council needs to remember ratepayers are the people they are meant to represent. In the last 3 years, rates have increased by 3.95%, 6%, and recently 9%. These rate increases are way above the CPI and those increases from adjoining councils. If you have spoken to ratepayers as much as I have in the last few weeks, you'll realise they are disillusioned at the way their ratepayer money is spent. Thank you for listening.
To our last candidate, our Deputy Mayor, Frank Mofflin.
All right, hello everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to the Fremantle Network for hosting tonight. For those who don't know me, Frank Mofflin, Hilton Ward Councillor, and for the last 2 years, Deputy Mayor. An absolute privilege to represent our community and our city. I'm not going to talk necessarily about a big idea today, but what I am going to talk about is, firstly, how we achieve big ideas. And the way we achieve big ideas is by working with others. And by working with others, that's collaboration. So, the City of Fremantle, we're but a small player. We represent our community, we listen to the vision from our community, and we go out and we try and achieve that vision. So we need to work with the state government. We need to work with the federal government. We need to work with other bodies to try and achieve those outcomes. And within council as well, we need to work with other councillors to achieve those outcomes. We need to be able to collaborate. We need to be able to listen. So for me, vitally important that we collaborate and achieve those outcomes. On a smaller but equally important issue, for far too long, Fremantle has excluded 50% of our population from participating in sport. Fremantle, as a town, has a huge history and I doubt any other local government has representation at state level like Fremantle. We have waffle men and women, we have cricket at state level, and we also have our round ball game at state level. When re-elected, I look forward to continuing my work as part of the Hilton Park Working Group, the Fremantle Oval Working Group, and championing the installation of female-friendly change rooms and facilities to enable women to participate in sport fully. For too long, I'm a father of 3 daughters. Now, it may seem like self-interest, but I've seen the great benefits that... What's that one? 2 minutes? 2 minutes, I'm going to be quick. The great benefits that sport have provided to girls. Sense of community, sense of self-respect and self. And I will push for us to collaborate with others, state, federal, to get the funding to install those facilities that are required. Thank you.